And I want to thank all of you here for including bipartisan elected officials like Representative Governor, Senator Braun, Senator Booker, Representative Jackie. Are you here? Where's Jackie? I didn't think she was going to be here to help make this a reality. And thanks to Senator Stabenow, Representative DeLauro for their leadership. And
final one, what happened in the hunger event today? The president appeared to look around the room for an audience member, a member of Congress who passed away last month. He seemed to indicate she might be in the room. What happened?
So the president was, as you all know, you guys were watching today's event, a very important event on food insecurity. The president was naming the congressional champions on this issue and was acknowledging her incredible work. He had already planned to welcome the Congresswoman's family to the White House on Friday. There will be a bill signing in her honor this coming Friday. So, of course, she was on his mind. She was of top of mind.
He said, Jackie, are you here? Where's Jackie? She must not be here.
No, I totally understand. I just explained she was on top of mind.
I think that she's living and in the room.
I don't find that confusing. I mean, I think many people can speak to sometimes when you have someone top of mind, they're a top of mind, exactly that. Look, he was at an event, you all saw, you all watched, which is why you're asking the question, right, where he was calling out, again, congressional leaders, a bipartisan leadership that we have seen on this particular issue. And again, he's going to see her family in just 2 days. And she was on top of mind. I mean, that is not an unusual scenario there.
Corinne, I have John Lennon top of mind just about every day, but I'm not looking around for him anywhere.
When you sign a bill for John Lennon as president, then we can have this conversation. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
This is my first video update coming to you from Nicosia, Cyprus. On this Thursday, let's talk about some news. Let me cross the street here. So, top of mind, is that how we're going to explain Biden's cognitive failures? Top of mind. Interesting phrase that Karine Jean-Pierre is using. I guess this is her version of circle back from Jen Psaki. Circle back Psaki, and now we have top of mind, Karine Jean-Pierre. So yeah, that was Bidenopoulos, Greece's favorite son, and that was the press conference that followed Biden's bizarre statements that he made during some event. Let's discuss what's going on in with regards to Nord Stream and this sabotage. And you know, one of the main reasons we are where we are is because we have an executive in the United States in the Oval Office that's a no-show, that's empty. And so now you have all the other people in and around Biden kind of doing their own thing and following their own agenda. And we are where we are now in Ukraine with regards to this proxy war with Russia and with this sabotage of the Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 pipelines, and not three leaks, but four. Four holes were punched in these pipelines. The Swedish authorities have said that they discovered another hole in the pipelines, and these leaks, these explosions were in Sweden's economic zone and exclusive economic zone, and also in Denmark's EEZ, exclusive economic zone. And so Sweden is not a NATO member. It's a candidate country, and it's depending on Turkey as to whether it's going to become part of NATO. It's dependent on Turkey at this point in time. But Denmark, I believe Denmark is a founding member of NATO. And so we now have NATO sounding off with regards to what happened in the Baltic Sea. A Baltic Sea which is completely, for the most part, completely controlled by EU and NATO countries. I mean, you just look at a map, and it is just NATO, EU country after NATO country after NATO country after EU country after EU country. I mean, the whole area is NATO and the European Union. Remember when I did that video at the Acropolis, and the story that I was talking about was how the Estonian, I believe it was like the Estonian foreign minister or defense minister, he came out with a statement saying that Estonia and Finland, they're building a missile system, or they should build a missile system where between both countries, they can prohibit Russian vessels from leaving St. Petersburg, from entering the Baltic. Remember that story? They were going to create like a missile system, and any types of Russian ships that decided to leave Russia and move out towards the Baltic Sea would be hit with missiles, because the Estonian official said that the Baltic is a NATO lake, or will turn the Baltic Sea into a NATO lake, because Estonia and Finland understood that they have overwhelming dominance and surveillance over that area. That is why you have a UK military official or Ministry of Defense official coming out and saying that that this sabotage, these explosions, they could have happened via remote control. In other words, they're starting to form the narrative. The collective West is starting to build a narrative where they say, you know what? We hear the argument that this area is monitored and surveilled by the collective West, by NATO, by the EU. We get that, and we understand the argument that it would have been difficult for Russia, for Putin to have somehow entered that area without our surveillance picking it up. But a way that they could have done this explosion, according to the UK, is that this could have already have been rigged with explosives, and Russia could have detonated those explosives via remote control. In other words, Putin is playing 8D chess. I mean, he's so villainous. He's so clever and dangerous and evil that he had already rigged Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 with explosives months and months ago. Perhaps understanding that one day he's going to need to blow them up via remote control. That's kind of the narrative that they're starting to build now. So you can see they're starting to, the collective West is, they're hearing the arguments, and they're hearing the logic as to why Russia has nothing to gain from blowing apart these pipelines, or wouldn't be able to blow apart these pipelines without someone seeing what they're doing, and they're starting to build the counter arguments. And one of those counter arguments is via remote control. Anyway, NATO. I was talking about NATO. So yeah, this whole area is surveilled and monitored by NATO and the EU. And NATO now is starting to weigh into this Nord Stream pipeline sabotage. And they're also starting to form a narrative, and I believe that narrative is a counter to Russia's partial mobilization. NATO is building the narrative to counter Russia's partial mobilization, and perhaps laying down the foundations for its entrance into Ukraine and a larger war with Russia, or perhaps its entrance into West Ukraine, in order to prevent Russia from moving further west and perhaps taking Odessa. Maybe something like that is being put together by the collective West and by the NATO authorities. But here's what NATO said, and I'm taking this from RT. Damage caused to gas pipelines linking Russia directly to Germany was most likely caused by, quote, deliberate, reckless, and irresponsible acts of sabotage, NATO said on Thursday, citing available evidence. The organization warned in a statement that leaks in the Nord Stream fuel connectors pose, quote, risks to shipping and substantial environmental damage, and called for a full investigation. The military bloc said it was ready to act against coercive use of energy and other hybrid tactics by state and non-state actors, pledging a united and determined response to any attacks on allies' critical infrastructure. Here's what they could be doing. I'm not saying this is what they're going to do. I'm not saying this is what's going to happen, but here's what could be happening. Here's a scenario. NATO sees that Russia is going to have partial mobilization, 300,000 troops. They're going to really now start their war against the terrorist state of Ukraine, because the special military operation will most likely be upgraded now to an anti-terrorist operation, and that means that Zelensky and all his ilk, they're fair game, right? So NATO sees this sabotage on Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 happens. It has certain benefits with regards to severing all ties between Russia and Germany, Russia and the European Union. It completely subjugates Germany and Europe to the authority and the control of the United States. It makes them completely dependent on U.S. LNG. All of these things that we all understand are the benefits of this pipeline sabotage for the neocons and the neolibs and the crazies in DC and Brussels, right? So we all know the benefits. But NATO now looks at this and they say, how can we benefit from this? How can we turn this to our advantage? Well, we can use this as a counter move to Russia's partial mobilization. So van der Leyen comes out and she says that, if this was indeed an attack and a sabotage, then we will, we will use the full force of our might, of our power to punish the people that are behind this, the state that's behind this. You have other officials saying this is an attack on EU infrastructure. This is an attack on European infrastructure. All of these statements now are starting to trickle out. And so NATO says, well, let's start to put together the narrative. Sweden, a candidate country, Denmark, a founding member. Let's put together the narrative that this was indeed an attack on EU, NATO member state infrastructure. Let's have a little show trial, kangaroo court investigation, which of course will be conducted by NATO member states and EU member states. Russia will be barred from participating in that investigation, even though you're talking about Russian pipelines and Gazprom pipelines and Gazprom. What is the company that owns the pipeline? Gazprom AG or something like that, which is 50% owned by Germany, Switzerland, or EU, something like that, and 50% Russia. Whatever. Doesn't matter that Russia is completely is a full-on stakeholder in all of this, right? Even Peskov said that he came out with a statement and said that the gas in the gas is our gas, and this is expensive stuff, and now it's just kind of bubbling up, into the ocean. And this is our pipeline that we spent money building, and now it's been destroyed. So, this could be thought of as an attack on Russian infrastructure, absolutely. But anyway, the Collective West are going to do their investigation 1 or 2 weeks, MH17 style, and of course we all know the outcome of that investigation, right? We know what's going to happen. Kind of like when Sweden did their investigation against Julian Assange, right? They're going to find out that Russia did this. That's what they're going to say. We've got the evidence. They used a remote control. They rigged it with dynamite, whatever. They used a super secretive sub, whatever it is. They're going to say that Russia did it. And then NATO is going to say this. They're going to say this to Russia. They're going to come out with this narrative and say, well, because the Russians have attacked NATO member state critical infrastructure, this gives us all the cause that we need to enter Ukraine and to protect the last remaining energy infrastructure into Europe, which is the Ukraine transit pipelines. You only have Turkstream now and Ukraine. Yamal's done. Nord Stream's done. Nord Stream 2 is done. That leaves you with Ukraine and Turkstream. And Turkstream is already been allocated, and that's already going to Hungary and Serbia and all of that. The Baltic pipe is a joke. That's 10 BCMs. 10 BCMs. That's all Baltic pipe has. Nord Stream was 55, Nord Stream 1 was 55, and Nord Stream 2 was going to be an additional 55 BCM. So Baltic Pipe is it's nothing. It's nothing compared to what Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 was. So all you're left with at this moment in time is essentially Ukraine, the Ukraine transit, which hasn't been damaged by Russia. 6 months of war, and Russia has not damaged those pipelines because Russia understands that when you damage pipelines, you cross a Rubicon. And when you damage a pipeline, that means that other state actors can damage your pipelines or your cables. So Russia laid off on the Ukraine pipelines, not to mention that those are their pipelines and they give them revenue. It gives Russia revenue. So why would you? Why would you blow it up, right? But NATO's going to say Ukraine is our only viable existing energy transit. It's our only pipeline towards our energy security. And so, given the actions of Russia, we need to step in and we need to safeguard Ukraine. We need to safeguard the west of Ukraine. We need to safeguard Odessa and the Black Sea and all of these things. I can definitely see that happening. And that is how NATO is going to counter the partial mobilization of Russia. Perhaps. Maybe this doesn't happen. Maybe this story fizzles away and they can't quite form a narrative around this sabotage, and they can't quite get everybody on board. And they just decide to say, you know what? We got what we wanted from this pipeline sabotage, i.e. the U.S. says we accomplished what we needed to accomplish. We've severed Russia from Europe. We're now the only game in town when it comes to EU energy. So let's just leave it at that and let this story die. But because you're not seeing the collective West mainstream media run crazy with this story, you're getting reports on this, you're getting posts on this, but you're not seeing like 20 articles a day from CNN. Because you're not seeing that at this moment in time, leads me to believe that the collective West mainstream media, they haven't gotten their scripts yet, they haven't gotten their talking points, because the narratives haven't quite been ironed out. They haven't quite been solidified. And so you can see that even the media, the collective West, they're not running full steam ahead with this because it's just such a massive story for them to not be reporting on this 24/7. It leads me to believe that they haven't been briefed on what the exact plan is with regards to this sabotage event. So the Pentagon announced that they're going to be giving another 1.1 billion in weapons to Ukraine, including 18 HIMARS. Those HIMARS obviously are being sent to Ukraine in order to replace the previous 16 HIMARS, which now I think we can say with near certainty have been destroyed by Russia. And you better believe that those 18 HIMARS are already in Ukraine as we speak. You know, the Pentagon announces it and they say we're going to send these weapons, but the weapons have already been sent. They're just, covering their trail. You had protests in Czech Republic starting up again. The people are demanding the resignation of the government. They're calling for the government to be neutral, and they want their standard of living and their cost of living to go back to where it was before the conflict. But that's not going to happen because what we're seeing from the Pentagon and what we're going to see from the EU is more escalation. They're not going to pull back. And the EU now has just, I think they're putting out an 8th package, or they're about to announce an 8th package. That's an 8th sanction package against Russia. In this sanction package, they're going to sanction Alexander Dugin. So 40 days after his daughter is killed by Ukraine terrorists, probably with the help of, maybe some 3-letter agencies, who knows, but after this happens to him, the EU decides that now they're going to sanction Dugin as well. So how about that? And they're trying to get this oil price cap thing going, but you have a lot of pushback there because an oil price cap would mean that a lot of EU economies are going to really suffer. For example, Greece, the Greek shipping industry, which runs the country, they're not going to be too happy about an oil price cap. And if this oil price cap goes through, I can imagine the Greek shippers are going to send a message to Prime Minister Mitsotakis telling him that his time is up as Prime Minister of Greece. But, they're going to find a way to get this through because, as Viktor Orban said in a statement he made the other day, sanctions against Russia, an eighth sanctions package against Russia is just really an eighth sanctions package against Europe. That's really who's being sanctioned here. And Orban just came out and said it. But, now the EU with this Nord Stream pipeline, you want to talk about another benefit of the explosion of the Nord Stream pipeline, the sabotage of this thing, the EU kleptocrats, Van der Crazy, Michel, Borrell, all of these people now, they can come out and say that they can't really do much about inflation and the rising prices of gas and oil and electricity and food shortages. They can't do anything about any of this stuff. You know why? Because Putin decided to blow up Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2. So now I can see the leadership of the Czech Republic. The people are saying they should resign. They're telling the government, step down. You've mismanaged everything. You've messed up. You guys have been a disaster. But I can see the Czech Republic government coming back and telling the people, look, hey, we understand your pain, everybody. We understand why you're out in the streets. We understand that the prices are, they're just 10xing. We understand that you're going through a hard time and that you're not going to have heat for your home and energy to power up your factories and businesses are going to close. We get it. But you know what? It's not our fault. Putin, he blew up Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2. Even if we wanted to restart those gas pipelines, which I'm telling you, we were really thinking about restarting those, right? That's what Germany's going to say. That's what Habeck's going to say. That's what Scholz is going to say. That's what the Czech Republic government's going to say. That's what the Mitsotakis government is going to say. Ursula von der Crazy, yeah, even if we wanted to start up Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2, even if we were sincere about finding some sort of ceasefire, a peace deal, a solution, we really wanted peace, we wanted prosperity, but what can we do? Crazy Putin decided to rig the pipelines with dynamite, like in a cartoon, like a Roadrunner, Wile E. Coyote cartoon, and the dynamite was rigged, and he took the thing, and he went, boom. What can we do? He sabotaged it. He sabotaged progress and peace and stability and cheap gas and cheap oil, cheap food. Putin sabotaged it all. Now they have a really, really bulletproof excuse, don't they? The rest of the world's not going to believe any of this garbage. You can be sure about it. When the investigation runs its course, when this eighth sanction package goes through, when the collective West screams about how Putin did this and did that, and how Putin in his infinite evilness and also infinite stupidity, because you would have to be absolutely stupid to do for Russia to blow up their own pipeline. But anyway, he's brilliant and stupid at the same time. But anyway, when they run with this narrative, the rest of the world, Middle East, Africa, South America, Asia, they know what's up. They know exactly what happened and who did what. For this, I have no doubt about it. China, they already know what's up because the Global Times, which is pretty much the English language mouthpiece of the Chinese government, they said this, quote, "It is quite obvious who wanted to stop selling Russian energy resources to Europe all this time. The United States of America. With this sabotage, the American government fulfilled three important foreign policy tasks at once. It reduced Russia's revenue from the sale of natural gas, increased its influence on European countries, and, among other things, received a good profit by increasing its own supplies of energy resources to Europe at high prices. Europe will suffer the most for the actions of American saboteurs," Chinese analysts noted. So the Chinese government is pretty much coming out and saying what Tucker Carlson a couple of days ago in his intro said, which is that we know who did this. We know who did this. Very, very interesting. The rest of the world, they're not going to buy any of this. They're not going to buy any of this. But sometimes I'm led to believe that that the powers that be they understand that they may have to rule over a multipolar world. And for them, they may say, you know what, if it doesn't work out with destroying Russia, if it doesn't work out with destroying China, and if it doesn't work out with enslaving and subjugating the entire globe, the least we can get out of this is complete, full spectrum, I mean full spectrum domination of the collective West. I mean, look at this chart with the US dollar. Take a look at the US dollar. And take a look at all of the other currencies. Canadian dollars, Australian dollars, euros, British pounds, Japanese yen. Take a look at that. You know, there is an oligarch class that is saying to themselves, worst case scenario, everyone in the collective West is going to be using our USD, and they're going to be under our full control. So we may not have the whole world, but at least we control from top to bottom everything with regards to the collective West part of the world. And so let China, let Russia, let them all de-dollarize. Europe is going to be completely hooked on the dollar, as is the rest of the collective West. So, you know, there's always a plan B and a plan C with these guys, and their plan B or their plan C still leaves them in a pretty good short-term position. Long-term, not so good. Long-term, medium, but short-term position, not so bad. Panic in Russia. Let's talk about this real quick, and then we'll do a clown world, and we'll wrap up this video. Panic in Russia for the mobilization. That is another narrative that the collective West is running with. And the U.S. Embassy, Romania, Estonia, Poland, Bulgaria, pretty much the entire European Union, their embassies in Russia, they are telling citizens that currently live in Russia, specifically citizens that have two passports, i.e. someone that has a U.S. and Russian passport, they are warning them, urging them to leave Russia, because if they don't leave, they might be drafted into the army and they might be sent to Ukraine. Now, why are they doing this? Why this announcement? Why this fear-mongering? Well, to me, I think it is pretty simple. They want to stir up panic. Plain and simple. The narrative that they're running with at the moment with regards to partial mobilization is that the Putin government messed up. Partial mobilization is going very, very poorly. The entire population in Russia is very upset with the partial mobilization. They're upset at the Putin government. They're trying to flee the country. Millions of people are trying to cross the borders. They're trying to get into Georgia. They're trying to get into Armenia and where else? And they're bolting through Belarus, and they're in the airports in St. Petersburg, right? They're just trying to bolt. Like entire cities full of people are emptying out in order to avoid this mobilization. That's the narrative that we're hearing from the collective West, and we all know that that's fiction. But in order to add to the panic, and this is important for them, in order to add to the panic, what the collective West is doing here is they're telling their citizens who currently reside in Russia, they're telling them to get the hell out because you might be sent to Ukraine. And what does that do? Well, it's very, very windy right now for some odd reason. Maybe it's where I'm sitting. How about right here? I think right here it's a little better. So what does that do when I get a notice from the Greek or the Cyprus embassy saying, Alex, get out of Russia. Get out of Russia right now, or else you're going to go to Ukraine. Well, I get this warning from the embassy. I say, oh, crap. They're going to send me to Ukraine. I don't want to go to Ukraine and get annihilated by the Zelensky war machine, which is annihilating the Russian military, right? That's the other narrative that they're feeding everybody. The Zelensky war machine, they're just taking up swaths and swaths of territory, and they're crushing the Russian military. I don't want to go there. It's a grinder. I'm going to get crushed. So, I tell everybody that I know in Russia, I'm packing my bags. I'm out of here. I tell all my Russian friends. I let them all know I'm leaving. I tell maybe the company that I'm working for, I tell them that I'm bolting. I'm out of here. I don't care, what compensation or anything, my job. I'm leaving there. And, you create a whole panic of your immediate circle. And then those people, they go home and they tell their family members and their friends, oh, that Alex guy that I worked with, that guy that I was telling you about that was sitting at the cubicle across from mine, man, he bolted because the Greek embassy, they told him to get the hell out because he's going to get drafted and he's going to fight in Ukraine. And the Greek embassy told him that the Zelensky war machine is perhaps the strongest, best equipped war machine in the entire history of the world. And they're cutting through the Russians like a hot knife through butter. And, Alec doesn't want to go to Ukraine and get annihilated. And so the whole thing just stirs up some panic. And what's the end game? Well, the end game is that the collective West, they understand that the only way they can win this conflict in Ukraine, the only way, NATO's not going to win it for them. NATO's going to be an escalation, but it's also a risk. NATO's not going to win the war. Zelensky's not going to win the war, that's for sure. Sending more weapons is not going to win the war. The only way they can win this thing, and they know it, is regime change in Russia. And they haven't gotten that off of their mind. They understand that the only way they can come out of this winning is if they can create enough panic, enough distrust in Russia for something to happen where the Putin government is removed or is forced to resign or is overthrown or God knows what else. It wasn't so windy and all of a sudden, like the last 5 minutes, very strong winds. Try to fix the audio in post. So I'll wrap up the video. So yeah, that's why they're doing this. That's why you see all of the EU countries sending out warnings to their citizens. They want to create panic. They want to stir up some panic, and they're hoping that over time it's going to be enough panic that it forces the people to rebel against the Putin government. That's the only way they're going to come out winning from this, and they know it. Anyway, let's do the cloud world. And this cloud world is courtesy of the Telegraph. And I have to be honest here. I actually went through the tweets and the articles of the Telegraph just to see what these guys are reporting on. And man, is the Telegraph a toilet publication. I mean, it is awful. Their articles are beyond ridiculous. Is this a serious publication? I thought it was. But their articles are like worse than gossip rags. I mean, I was stunned to see the types of headlines that the Telegraph was putting out there. I thought they were serious. I thought this was like a serious UK media outlet, but boy, was I wrong. Anyway, here is the first clown world, courtesy of the Telegraph. Quote, new recruits to the Russian army are being told to ask their wives and girlfriends for tampons to use as bandages in the event they get shot, as military supplies run out. Yep, there you have it. No more bandages for the Russian army. It's time to use tampons. How do they think up this stuff? Anyway, here's the next one. Spy submarine drones, underwater vehicles. The apparent sabotage on the pipeline between Russia and Germany may have another source. And the best part about this title, this article, is you can see this little submarine with Putin in it. And, you understand the implication, right? They're trying to tell us that But it was actually Putin in the submarine. You know, he's the one that went down there and blew up the pipeline. They're trying to create that connection there. What a rag. I'm telling you, man. I was going through their Twitter feed and I was stunned. I was literally stunned at the titles these guys are putting out there. It is bad. It is really bad when it comes to this type of I was going to say journalism, but it's not even that. I mean, they're just like making stuff up. Just making stuff up. Wow. Anyway, I wonder what they're going to say about the Nord Stream pipeline sabotage. I wonder what more they're going to make up about that outside of Putin in submarines going down there to blow things up. I bet you they're working on some fiction with regards to that as well. Anyway, let's end it there. The Duran.locals.com, Duran Shop, 10% off. Use the code. Good day. Take care.